So I started off in real estate in 1977 in the mortgage lending industry, cut my teeth on that, and I've now had a real estate license for 42 years. And I started doing 1031 exchanges about 29 years ago. I've done over 7,000 1031 exchanges for investors. I love CPAs. CPAs, financial, you're amazing. You're a very good presentation. This lady knows what she's talking about. She's really good. And so I've been around a long time. In fact, talking about being around a long time, people say, is Brad still doing 1031 exchanges, you know? And, you know, I can remember my granddaughter came over to our house a couple years ago, and she said, Papa, did you know that my dad played football? I said, well, of course I did. I said, I went to every one of his games. I said, did you know that your papa played football? You did? I said, yes. I said, I can prove it. And I went and got my 1965 yearbook. Okay, yeah, yes, none of you were born then, okay. And turned to the football page, there I am in a three-point stance, jet black hair. Man, I look good. Okay. And she said, Papa, that's you? I said, yeah. She says, what happened to you? So this is what's happened to me, being involved in the real estate industry for all these years in the wonderful state of Arizona. I was originally born in California and raised and went to school there, but I'll never go back to California. Arizona is my state now. It's a great place to be. So I started off in real estate and now doing 1031 exchanges. So we're going to talk about some of the rules and regulations and some of the history and what is a 1031 exchange. A 1031 exchange is simply when you are selling an investment property, not the property you live in for your home, but the property, it's an investment property. It can be a rental, it can be raw land, commercial, building, industrial. It can be lots of different kinds of investment property. When you're selling that property, you are able to take the gain from that property and buy other property that is equal to or more than, and put all that money in there and defer all the capital gain. It's not tax-free, it's tax-deferred. Now it will become tax-free at one point in time, but you have to do something drastic to do that. It's called dying. Then you don't have to pay it, okay? But in the meantime, you should try doing 1031 exchanges. So it's a great program. So what I have up here on this first slide, it's called the economic wheel of exchanging. So let me ask this question. Before you were able to see that slide up there, how many people do you think are involved in a real estate transaction? You know, a lot of people think, well, obviously a selling broker, a buying broker, maybe a lender, maybe a title company, and a few other people. But look what we've got up on this board. Agents for the real estate agents, escrow officers, title companies, insurance agents, home inspectors, utility companies, repair, landscaping people, appraisers, moving companies. And number 30 is most important of all is Chick-fil-A, because you have to go to eat somewhere, okay, for lunch. What I'm saying is this: all of these people up here are making an income because there was a 1031 exchange. An investment property was sold and an investment property was purchased. So it means that all of these people can derive an income because there's an economic wheel of investment property. Why I put that up there was because in Washington, especially the current administration anyway, not to be political or anything, but there has been a whole new system to eliminate Section 1031 from the tax code. In other words, the government thinks, oh, you know, wouldn't it be great? Because then when people sell their investment property, they will have to pay capital gains. Now I'm going to ask everybody here a simple question. If you had an investment property and you were going to be forced to pay capital gains on it, what might you not do?
Sell it.
You don't want to sell it because you're going to have to pay the taxes. So what happens then is that the economic wheel stops and it's not happening. So there was also an effort to dumb it down to where the maximum amount of property you could do a 1031 exchange on would be $500,000. And that did not pass either. So we have the National Association of Realtors and all kinds of hundreds and hundreds of organizations that are lobbying against the government from getting rid of Section 1031, which has been around for a very, very long time. Back in the early 90s, not too many people knew about it, and the whole thing picked up. And then, of course, we know that it crashed. If I can. Is there an eraser? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. So to give you a little illustration of the cyclical business that real estate is. Cyclical meaning it goes up and down just like a roller coaster. And we have talked about that this morning a lot. So back in 2003, my wife and I had a house in Scottsdale, and we ended up selling it for it was $126,000. Can you believe that? A townhouse in Scottsdale for $126,000. But remember, it was 2003, so prices were lower. Okay, so we ended up selling that property for $126,000, and we ended up buying a property for $136,000 in Avondale, a single-family home, only 1 year old then. And we thought this is really a good deal. So we were investors. So then 2005 came along. Okay, I want my real estate experts in here to tell me, what was the market like in 2005? On fire. You didn't even have to put a sign in a yard for sale. Just hold it there. And 3 minutes later, you got an offer. Okay, it was unbelievable. My office in Glendale in 2005, we were doing 150 1031 transactions a month. That's 150 sales and 150 purchases for investors. So in 2005, what do you think this house we bought for in 03 was now worth?
156.
300. 500,000.
Okay, we're getting there, okay. I'm going to say about there, right about there. And of course, I went to my wife and said, my wife of 54 years this month, by the way.
Wow. Congratulations.
And I said, I am the greatest investor of all time. Look what I have done for you. And then 2008 came, 8, 9, right around there. Now what was that house worth?
0.
Oh, somebody said it. $80,000. Then she came to me. You're the worst investor I've ever known. And I'm married to you. I said, it wasn't my fault, okay? What happened here in this horrible time, 8, 9, 10, part of 11, people were losing their shirts along with their houses. It was an awful, awful time. Suicides rates went up in a lot of states, especially in Nevada. But it was a terrible time. There was no appreciation, and there weren't very many 1031 exchanges going on because there was no appreciation. But this is a cyclical world we live in, and it had to come back, and it did around 2012, and then 13, 14, 15, 16, all the way till today. And it's come back. So now it's 2024, hard to believe. Now what is that house worth? You know what? I would say right about 5. So this is what happens, okay? So the whole point of this is that in real estate, we have all kinds of people looking for property. Do you think there are many people, investors and people, leaving California and coming here?
Yeah.
It's a mass exodus. Massive, okay? And then also what's happening here in the valley. Do you think the 303 corridor, anything is happening up that way?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. The industrial complex, the Amazon, there are huge companies, the computer companies, the chip makers, from everybody. There are going to be hundreds and thousands of different jobs available, and people are going to be coming here. And the Southwest Valley is going to be hot, especially that market along the 303 corridor. It's going to be very big. Okay, so can we go to the next slide? Okay, so research has shown us that like-kind exchanges, when I say like-kind exchanges, you'll understand the word like there in just a minute. It's going to create 568,000 jobs, 27.5 billion of labor income, 55.3 billion of value added to the U.S. economy. So it's a great stimulus. Okay, next slide. You can go past that one. We don't have to do that. Oh, I got some water over there. But okay, good. Now I'll get two waters. Okay, good. So what would happen if the government took away Section 1031, which helps, investors? We can see what the impact is. It would be somewhere around about 25.1 billion loss in the GDP, so the gross domestic product. So it's important that we keep Section 1031. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about the basics of what an exchange is. If you were asked the question, what is a 1031 exchange? And I think my real estate experts can tell me. When you have an investor, I know some of you real estate agents, the investor have not heard of it. They didn't know anything about it. So one of the first things that a real estate agent wants to ask an investor is, are you considering doing a 1031 exchange on your investment property? There's only three things the investor can say. What is that? No, I've never heard of it, or yes, I want to do it. So, it's really just taking the equity from one investment and putting it into another. That's really what you're doing. And when you do that, you are deferring the taxes. Now, if you have a client that says, I really want to pay taxes, then they can. Or they can say, or if they say, I'm not interested in buying another property. I want to pay off some credit cards. I want to go to Hawaii. I want to do some things. They can do that. And then the next thing they'll do when they get back from Hawaii is pay taxes. Because there's no magical thing about this, okay? They have to reinvest the property reinvest the money into other real property, okay? So that's what they've got to do to defer the taxes. Yes?
So one thing that can be done in a 1031, you just mentioned it, that's why I wanted to comment, is that if you have debt, and you have situations like that where like, hey, I don't want to buy another property because I have debt, I'm going to pay it off and call it a day, I'll rather pay the taxes. There's a way around that. What you do is you can still go ahead and buy a new property, right? Do the 1031 exchange, and if the next property, if it has equity, let's say you sold it for enough, it has equity, you can take a loan on the new property to pay off your credit card.
That is a great comment, and I was going to. You stole my thunder there. Okay, I'll let you do that one. You can't do any more. Okay. So that beautifully said. So somebody says, I want to take out $50,000. I want to do something with it. Okay. Okay. Don't take it out at close of escrow on the property you're selling. You'll have to pay taxes on it. It's called boot. Okay, an old English term. Go ahead and put all your money into the new property, and then when it closes, do a refinance on that property. Get your loan out, and that's not taxed, okay? So that's done all the time. Really, really, and a lot of people do not know that. And you get to tell them that, okay? So why exchange? Obviously, the reason is to defer the taxes, thousands of dollars in capital gain. Why do people do an exchange? They sell an older property, they buy a new property. And that's done all the time, okay? Or they go into a better area. A better area probably is going to create better rent, so that's a good thing. You can sell your property in Iowa where the temperature I heard this morning, well, how about North Dakota? It was minus 68 degrees in North Dakota, in one little town. I was on the radio coming over here. So you want to sell your property somewhere in the Midwest, and you can buy property in Arizona. You can sell any property anywhere in the United States and U.S. territories, but you cannot sell in Arizona and buy in Rocky Point. You can't sell in Rocky Point and buy in the U.S. because that's Mexico and we're U.S., and you can't sell in Canada and buy here, or sell here and buy in Canada. I was asked one time by a brand new real estate agent several years ago, what about New Mexico? So I did some research, and by golly, it's a state, okay? So yes, New Mexico's okay. So you can do that, and that's why people like to do a change in investment. I've had raw land for a long time. It doesn't produce any income for me. I was going to do something on it, blah, blah, blah. Now we're selling it, and we're going to go ahead and buy some other property. I have got, it's closing Wednesday, cross fingers. I think it is. I think it really will close Wednesday. The gentleman sold a block of land here in the valley somewhere, $5 million. And he's buying property up north somewhere, and that's what he's doing. He owned it free and clear, didn't have a dime of debt on it. And if he would not have done a 1031 exchange, his capital gain would have been over $2 million. So it's important, okay? Now that's the extreme. But you have a house somewhere here that's $400,000 or $500,000, and you bought it long ago, and you work out your gain with your wonderful CPA, and she might say your taxes are going to be $75,000 on your gain. Okay, you can take your equity and go buy another property equal to or more than the net sale price. Now let me explain that. How do you get to the net sale price on your property that you sold? It's the real estate commissions and the normal closing costs come off of the sale price. So that can be substantial, to come off of there. So you have a $500,000 sale, and the actual net sale price might be $470,000. So your goal is to buy another property for $470,000. Could you buy another property for $400,000? Yes, but you'll pay capital gain on the difference. So it'd be a partial 1031 exchange. But it's still just a great, great way to do it. Then the question is when to exchange. How long must you own a property for it to qualify for a 1031 exchange? I'm so glad that we talked about flips, because a flip does not count as an exchange. It's ordinary income, isn't it? So you can't do a flip and do an exchange. So the question becomes, how long? And here's the answer. The answer is, there is no answer.
No.
There is no answer. Well, how long? There's no answer. Well, what does that mean, Brad? Well, in the industry, generally speaking, and I want to know, Gina, right? I want to know your thought on this. Generally speaking, if you've owned a property and your intent was to hold it as an investment or for productive use in a business or trade or rental, and you'd rented it out for a year or more, would that qualify?
I did one.
Most people would.
It was audited, let me tell you.
And he got audited, had only 1 year?
We won the case because the intention was to rent.
Because his intention was to rent it. See, that's the key. So he could prove maybe he had a rental agreement, a lease agreement, could show rent receipts, whatever the case may be. So that would have been very important for him to do that. So generally speaking, though, most people have this hold this property for more than a year. 2 years is great, but keep good records on it. That's exactly what you want to do. Now, having said that, sometimes you have scenarios that come up. We had a case where the investor, she sold a property, and 8 months later, she called me up and said, the renter left and my girlfriend was in town and wants to buy my rental. I've only owned it for 8 months. So what she did was she went ahead and sold it to her girlfriend, bought another property, did an exchange. Here's the key. The case that she had to take to IRS, if she ever would have been audited, doesn't mean she would be, but if she did, she can show the lease agreement, she can show rent receipts, and again, show her intent that it was held as an investment. So she went ahead and did that, and as far as I know, everything was just fine. But generally, we don't have any issue with that. Most investments are held for a longer period of time. Then the last one is consult with your CPA always, okay? And find out what your intent is. Okay, next slide. What I've got up here is a transaction of how a 1031 takes place. Who's involved? What are their responsibilities? So you have up here a sale for a property of $525,000 and the exchange value is $491. What does that mean? It means that the real estate commissions and the closing costs to the title company came off of the $525,000 and there was a figure of $491, which is the exchange value. So you want to buy another property for $491 or more. You can buy 2 or 3 or 4, it doesn't matter, it's fine, you can do that. So $491. So the buyers come along, write a contract, they get accepted. Now, in 1031 exchanging, the exchanger, the investor, is not allowed to take his money. He's not allowed to have his money. It has to go to the title company and through a qualified intermediary. That's what I am. So,
They can't hear him, so let's just swap the mic real quick. Sorry.
oh, swap?
This one.
Just a little one. Yeah.
And I apologize.
No problem.
Thank you. Let me charge you.
Let me get this one. I'm sorry.
Oh, I have my pocket.
Can we? I'm gonna leave this right here.
You can do it.
That way. Okay?
Appreciate it. Better?
All right. So the investor is not allowed to have his receipt of funds. It has to go to a qualified intermediary. So who is going to be a qualified intermediary? Some of the major title companies across the state have divisions, and there are many individual 1031 intermediaries like myself. My company is BHX 1031 Exchange, and like I said, my experience of over 7,000 exchanges. And then, you know, how safe is their money? You want to find out who the intermediary is, who do they bank with, and so forth. My firm is with banks with Capital One Commercial Bank, and we have a $50 million fidelity bond, which protects the client's money. So money has to come to the intermediary from the title company. They wire those funds to the intermediary, and we hold it. And there's a time element here for the investor to find property. He has 45 days from the close of escrow to identify property, and 180 days to close. The 45 is inside the 180. So that's his goal, is to be able to find the property that he wants and close on it before the 180th day. What would happen if he couldn't find any property? Anybody want to take a guess?
Gotta restart again.
He gets to pay capital gains, because in the 45 days, he wasn't able to perform and find the property, so the money is now going to go back to the investor, and he's going to have to pay the capital gains because he wasn't able to identify the property. Yes?
Go back again, just the whole, because they weren't hearing, they should be hearing now.
Okay.
I apologize.
To where?
The whole scenario that you, the last couple minutes, we saw.
Okay. All right, so you guys don't mind a little repeat? Okay. So remember, here's the relinquished property. It's a property that's being sold for $525,000. The exchange value is $491. The $491 comes from the commissions and the real estate closing costs taken off. So the goal is to buy a property for $491,000. That's what you can buy less, but you'd pay capital gain on the difference. So the buyer comes along, writes a contract, it closes escrow, and then the money comes to the intermediary through the title company. They wire those funds. We open a 1031 escrow account for them, hold it, while he has 45 days to identify and 180 days to close. Okay?
Now, they can identify a property prior to even selling their house, can they?
Yeah, Angel, that's a really good thought. So let's say your investor wants to build a new home. And the builders, how long is it taking to build a new home? 10 months, 12 months, whatever it might be. Well, how do you do that? You can, the investor can go to the builder and make his down payment, start the building of the property and identify it even before the property that he's selling has got a contract on it. You've really put the cart before the horse there, but that's okay. And then about 8 months later or 7 months later, you can put the property you want to sell on the market and get it sold. So then when it sells, you'll have the funds to close on the new property that you're building. So a very, very good good comment there on how to do that, okay? So this is the general part of it. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Next slide. Okay. This is for real estate agents, but we can skip that one there. Okay, we'll skip over that one. It's just, you know, if you're a real estate agent, you can make more commissions because you're getting multiple sales. You can go off of, you can skip that one there. What I want to talk about was what is like-kind property, okay? And like-kind property is any property that is held as an investment or for productive use in a business or trade. So you could sell a rental property, buy commercial, buy an apartment complex, condos, a farm, retail, fast food, raw land, industrial. All of those entities there, they can all be exchanged for each other, okay? You cannot buy a business. I had a gentleman once who sold a property. We were holding the money. And he called me. He says, I found what I wanted to buy. I said, oh, good. I said, where is it? He says, it's in California. I said, okay, what'd you buy? He says, well, I bought a yacht. I said, oh, is it nailed to the wharf? You know, I didn't say that. I said, well, you can't buy a yacht. That's personal property. I said, you have to buy real property, okay, that you hold title to, okay? So he can't do that. So you can't buy a car or a boat or jewelry. It has to be real property, okay? It's called like-kind property. Now, you can buy one or two or three. It doesn't really matter. One of the biggest ones that I've ever seen over the past few years was we had a doctor who sold 30 single-family homes in Prescott Valley and Prescott. In 90 days, he sold all 30 homes and then bought 3 commercial properties, a couple in Tucson and one here. And he didn't have to pay any taxes because he did 1031 exchanges. He saved a boatload of money. It was just amazing. Okay, we can go to the next slide. We can go past that. That's a little bit, there are some things that are not like kind. Okay, your personal residence, I'm glad you touched on that. You do have an exclusion if you've lived in the house 2 out of the last 5 years of $250,000 if you're single, or $500,000 if you're married and filed jointly. So you don't have to pay capital gains. Now, if it's above and beyond those, then you would pay beyond that. So if you were selling a house and your house now is now selling for $1 million, are you going to have to pay some taxes?
Yes.
Yeah, beyond whatever the gain is beyond $500,000. So then you have what they call dealer property. Dealer property is really like the flips, okay? That they don't qualify. A partnership interest. Now we talked about LLCs and so forth. An LLC is also what they call a disregarded entity. So an LLC can do an exchange. So an LLC can sell property and the LLC can buy a property. However, if the LLC is 3 different people and one of them wants to do an exchange and 2 of them don't, that cannot be done because it's a partnership interest. So it has to be the whole partners or not. Okay, so that can't happen. Inventories, if you sold a building, maybe like a hardware store, the building and the land count, but all of the stuff inside the hardware store doesn't count. It would have to be on a separate type of structure at all. Okay, next slide. How are we doing on time? We got another 5 more minutes or so?
10 minutes to go.
Okay, good. Identification of property. is one of the most important parts of the exchange. To their heirs on a stepped-up basis, the heirs inherit that property on a stepped-up basis where they don't have to pay the capital gain either, because the value of the property is valued at the time of the passing away of the title holder. Question?
We have another question.
Yeah.
Can you make it a rental property again?
Can you buy?
Can you make it a rental property?
Oh, sure.
again?
Absolutely. 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 All the time. So if you got,
Any other questions for Brad?
if you have questions, call me on my card. I'm always free to talk to you and visit with you if you have questions. And it might be a month from now, it might be a year from now. But I'm not going anywhere, as far as I know. I'm going to be here.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, everybody.
I do have one client, Brett, that he's moving from California. He's selling a rental in California that is paid off. And he's going to buy a house here. And he wants to buy cash. But he tells me, Angel, I want to keep like $50,000 from the sale of the house in California. I want to have some money, buy some new furniture and stuff. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, do the exchange, get into the house. It's going to be your primary home because the one in California is an investment property. It's been for 15 years.
He's not going to use the house as his primary residence.
Now he's going to be moving into this house in Arizona as a primary home.
We can't do that.
So he wanted to do a 1031 exchange and come to this new house.
Right, as his primary residence, and you can't do that.
So he can't do that.
You have to make it an investment again.
That's correct. So
Then you rent it for a year or two.
Have it as a rental for a year or two, the longer the better. So he has it for 18 months, maybe a year, and then he can move into it after that. Yeah, you have to have the intent to show that it was an investment. If he moved into it right away, there's no intent there. He's making it his primary residence, and that's going to disqualify it.
And then in his case, if he wants to still take the $50,000 that he wants out of the sale of the house in California, then he could do, as you indicated earlier, exchange and then refi afterwards.
We just had this happen this week, that we had a close of escrow on a property, and they wanted to take some cash. They wanted $50,000 cash, is what he said, that $50,000 cash at close of escrow. And we couldn't talk them into anything else, so they did. At the close of escrow, the escrow officer kept out $50,000, which will be reported to IRS, and they will pay taxes on the $50,000. But it didn't negate the exchange. The rest of it went to another property for the exchange. But the better way to do it is to put it all into the new house and then refinance. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay?
Well, thank you so much again, Brad.
Thank you, everybody. Great.
This is